with Paul Daner, Mark Shalafoo, from listener questions to some running gags. Insider stories, ambush life, that dad life, and respect for flags. Kick off the weekend, alright? It's the Growler Friday Show. It's Who Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Who Dey Light. Paul Daner Jr., Mark Shalafoo, here with you to kick off your weekend. What's up, Mark?
Not a whole lot. I'm excited for this next week. You get the big game on Sunday. Halloween's around the corner. It's a fun time. What flag are you flying? Is it a Halloween flag right now?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, it's been the Halloween season outside of a brief carved out moment in time where the birthday flag showed up for our big celebration last weekend, which thanks to so many people that decided that they also felt like celebrating last weekend, sending us their enjoyment of the birthday and the 100th episode combo. Appreciated that. But that was the moment in time where birthday replaced October of the Ghostbusters flag as it continues to fly strong. But we're big house decorators, so we've got the Halloween house with all the stuff on it. It's looking real creepy and spooky and using the purple light and everything. So it has to, yeah, very spooky, very spooky. We want to show that we're on theme. Always.
Do you guys go hard for Christmas too, with like all the lights and stuff? Or are you just Halloween?
No, we go hard is maybe a strong word there, but we get after Christmas a little bit. We're decorated, okay? Like we're in it. All right. We're not taking it easy. We're not passing. We're not like the one person that just like hangs up one strand of light off like their door or just does the wreath or something. Like, no, we go, but we're not, it's not National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or anything like that.
All right. Well, so it just sounds like you're going to need a seasonal shed at some point, because you just keep throwing up all sorts of different, Halloween stuff, Christmas stuff. You're going to be the Easter house and just keep being that themed neighborhood anchor,
Like, I
don't
don't know that I ever want to be like the Easter house, or I'd be like the Arbor Day house where we just have like trees everywhere and stuff. Like,
yeah, be a real trendsetter. Just break out of the norms here and just lead this neighborhood by example. You know what, though? I do feel like you got to take the Ghostbusters flag down to put up the Growler flag for the live show on Sunday. You're right. Signal, put this bad signal out there for people to come down to BetMGM Nation Kitchen and hang out with us.
Yeah, all the people I want to influence that drive by my house every day. No, the Growler flag is still proudly flying and living down at Nation Kitchen at BetMGM. So it's down there waiting on us to be down there. 10 a.m. on Sunday. Bengals, Eagles start at 1. We will start at 10 and we'll go till about 11 o'clock. Tim Crumrye is going to be our guest in case you haven't heard yet. I know you have. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be giving away a Grader's shipper. We've got the wheel that we're going to spin to give that away. I'm excited to give the first spins of the wheel. We haven't even used it yet. $3 Cincy Lights. We got our merch we're going to give away. Bar tabs we're going to give away. We're here to buy drinks for people, give stuff to you. You can meet Tim Crumrye. We'll answer questions and talk about what is turning into a huge game for the Bengals against the Eagles. I decided we've all decided that it's a measuring stick game, and I was trying to decide this week what was my favorite measurement devices, to use in sports analogies. And it's always like it's a barometer. There's the thermometer, but it had me like trying to look up some of the other ones. Like maybe we need to be expanding other measurement devices like protractors and stuff. Like, do we need to go deeper into the measuring devices? I wasn't sure, but I'm here. All of the devices need to be out this weekend. It's a big barometer weekend for where the Bengals are at as a team.
Yeah, it could be a big protractor weekend too, because I am still not sure how to use one because I haven't used one since high school. So,
come on,
it's just like this team, it can be a little confusing, and so maybe a protractor would be a good one to use.
Tell me which one of these you like the most to add to the measuring stick lexicon. We've got a hygrometer. Now I'm just I don't even know what all these are. Okay. A tension meter. That'd actually be a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to buy a tension meter and bring it to BetMGM.
Oh, a tension meter. I thought it was like attention.
Not like
I
need
attention meter.
No, that's just YouTube.
Yeah, I was going to say,
the internet.
You've got numbers. You've got raw data on these shows and your articles and stuff. That's your attention meter. Yeah.
The tension meter. Yeah, no, tension. It measures tension. which I feel like is very much applicable to sports.
Yes.
There's a moisture meter that we probably don't need to get into.
Don't want the moisture meter.
pH meter. Compass. You know, it could be a compass game. That's
Ooh,
not
I like
terrible.
A compass game.
What do you know what direction your team is going? Compass game?
Yeah. Is this season starting to point north, or is it going a little south, or is it just spinning around because it can't make up its mind?
Yeah. Are we in like a northwest? I'm not sure. You know, I mean, I like compass game is definitely going to end up unless I like that. I don't know that we need a glucose meter as I read through these.
I mean, there are probably some fans that need a glucose meter, but
yeah,
like just that's NFL fans in general.
A clock. I mean, really, a clock is a measuring device, measuring time. And if the time is ticking, I think, you know, it could be an hourglass game if the time is starting to run out.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I feel like we always go with measuring stick. And I just feel like we've got to be better as a media contingent, sports media group. I got to look into this tension meter. I'm interested.
Because a meter sounds like a real device. A measuring stick. It's just, I mean, come on. What is this? Like the Stone Ages? There's the measuring stick.
It'd be like if you were trying to decide games in a sport that had billions of dollars to it, and you just brought out like two dudes with a couple of sticks and chains attached to it to decide if they got first downs and stuff. Like you would never, you would want something more advanced, and like you have to have something. Is this what are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, you would never incorporate just a coin flip to matter in any sort of manner in that contest.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be crazy. You would never do that, which is, it kind of speaks to probably why we still do things like use measuring stick and barometer. It's like I just think we need to advance along with the NFL.
Yeah, if you're going to throw that in your articles, you need to start wearing a fedora like a 1950s sports writer, you know, and get really into your measuring sticks and your little more nicknames. I think they were heavier on nicknames back then, so you'd have to get more nicknames for dudes and kind of lean into the old ways.
John Ball Jenkins needs to throw that ball down the field. I'm going to measure it with the tension meter, you see? There we go. There you go.
Yeah, we need one.
I got a 1940s voice I can pull out. I always have that.
All right, good. I want you to go full costume then next week and get like a little trench coat and stuff and really kind of lean into this character for our YouTube audience, for the Growl Pals, who we do appreciate that view this on YouTube. And make sure you leave a good review of the show on whatever podcast app you're listening to right now. All that stuff helps a show like ours. And you'll get more 1940s sports reporter from Paul is what's important here.
I could really throw people off if I did that. I could really throw off the entire locker room if I showed up and just started and did a full. There is a guy who does that actually. Like he asks questions like that just to kind of throw off the whatever athlete.
That sounds like a Super Bowl media day thing. You know, where you get like,
I'm sure it's been used there. I'm positive that it's been used there, but I've seen a couple of clips where that happened. So maybe it's already, that role's already taken. Someone's already gone down this path, but you know, I have no problem being the tension meter guy.
Yeah, and I feel like that's important too, though. It's like, who cares if it's an outsider that comes into your locker room and starts trying to like punk guys with this weird character? It needs to be somebody they know, and you just show up and they'll be like, did Paul have a stroke? What happened to him? Why is he all of a sudden dressing different, talking different? We're worried for his health here.
No
but
doubt.
A tension meter game, it feels like, you know, the right way to describe that, because it feels like the last 2 weeks have been football purgatory with this team, because you're playing games that you absolutely can't afford to lose, which makes it, from my perspective, a little less interesting, because you're just watching, you know, hoping to avoid despair for another week. And you can't really, there's not as much joy in that. It's not as much fun to watch them beat up a hapless Cleveland team. Now, if they won 48-3, that would be fun, but to struggle through that game, which is kind of uneasy, here's a chance to reset some of these narratives and talking points and vibes that we've had for the last few weeks. Because if they win this, it's really going to start to flip some of that. It gives us some new perspectives and some new things to talk about, and maybe brings a little bit more of that joy back into the experience of probably playing for this team, and then also more so for us fans, just to enjoy watching them and kind of can collect our breath a little bit watching this team.
The chants aren't as good when you're trying to avoid despair. You know, it's like,
yeah,
let's go home team, and you start clapping. Instead, you get like avoid despair. It's just not as, it doesn't have quite the same excitement level, you know, when you're trying. I think it's much better when you're rooting for joy instead of avoiding despair. I'm with you on that. Well, you're right though, because there's been no like real upside. The only bad could come really from the last 2 weeks. Even when good happens, it hasn't been good enough, and despair still set in for fans of this team.
Well, you're playing some garbage teams, so you're
Right.
supposed to beat those guys. And then when you have a game that's a little bit more of a toss-up, that's an opportunity for you to kind of show what this team could be. So it's at least exciting.
They get paid too, Mark. I don't know if you heard, but they get paid
They
too.
do.
It's true.
All
right. So is those vibes and the fresh narratives, is that your favorite story this week?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's what excites me about this week and this game, is they really do have a chance to kind of make a statement and kind of put things back on track. What was your favorite thing this week?
Well, my favorite thing was the measuring devices. So that was, I mean, I enjoy going through those, but I enjoyed yesterday specifically on more of a micro level. I don't know if this was just a joke, because Jamar, he's doing his press conferences now because the crowds around his locker are just too big. And so he's up there and he's very comfortable. He was probably more comfortable around his locker, but that's just shows how comfortable he was around his locker. But it was getting to be uncomfortable. But he's so light and he's always laughing and he's just expressive. And he does like to mess with people. So you never know if he's screwing with us just to amuse himself on a Thursday afternoon. But it appeared that perhaps we, the media, informed him that the game time had changed to 1:00. And I love the idea that Jamar did not know. I gotta think he was messing with us. I just really hope that's the case. That said, it would have been hysterical if it really was like, man, media saved my ass this week. If he showed up at like 12:30 or something like that, not realizing that the game had been changed. And so I love the idea of like media finally, you know, people say we suck and we don't ask the tough questions, but we made some good happen this week. We as a media helped Jamar know, hey, the game's at 1, not 4:30.
I just feel like that'll be a fun question for somebody to ask in every press conference going forward. Jamar, are you aware of what time the game is this week? You know, just those regular.
I think that's easy. Yeah, it's a good softball. Like, you know, you start out like how you doing or how you been, whatever. However you start in any of these softball starters. That's the one for Jamar.
How are you liking?
You know what time the game is?
Exactly. Yeah. How are you liking the whole Jamar press conference thing? Because I know that's a switch for the people covering.
It's all right.
Team.
It's fine. I mean, that part is okay. It was untenable. It was basically impossible unless you stalked his space and waiting on him to show up, which I won't do. To really almost get a question in the previous setup. There was just too many people. He's in too high of demand. He's a star receiver. They have this big, spacious press conference room with chairs and everything else. There's no reason to squeeze in there when he can just go up there all the same. If you know when it's happening, it's good for TV. The TV people love that. So I don't have a problem with it. It's much easier to actually get questions into him now, which is really what I'm concerned about.
I do think that if he's going to continue down this route, he needs to keep doing bits then. Like I didn't know what time the game was. Like that makes it a little bit more fun. And he's got to keep sprinkling those in. And hopefully he did know, and he just is excellent at committing to the bit. Has there ever been a time when that's happened where like a player just shows up like 20 minutes before the game because he totally forgets?
Boy, I can't remember any, but I do believe that is happening. I'm sure that has happened where guys either maybe not because they didn't know the game time, but for any number of other reasons, or maybe they got arrested on the way to the game, like you know, which has happened already this year in Miami. I don't know, maybe that's it, but pulling as everyone tries to pull a Scheffler. I don't know, like maybe that's what it is, but I've heard of that happening before, but not specifically by not knowing what time the game is. Feels like some basic info.
Yeah, if you show up late to the game, the tension meter will not appreciate that. So I'm glad
the tension meter rises when Jamar Chase isn't there at 11:30. Okay. Can I rank your tweets
Oh
from
yeah,
last week's game?
sure.
Okay. So you had a number of different tweets. You were feeling your tension meter was high, it appeared.
At times, yes.
At certain points in that game. Here, counting down here, my top 3. So number 3 is actually a subtweet of a previous tweet where your original was time to have the Mixon conversation with Hubbard, as maybe you weren't really happy with a couple of plays that he made earlier in the game, to which you subtweeted after his interception the confo about how much we appreciate him making timely plays.
Exactly. What better time for his first career interception?
Yeah,
but he is
in your mentions asking you to take direct shots at players more often, since it seemed to obviously motivate Sam, who was clearly scrolling his mentions during the second quarter.
A play goes south. I'm pretty sure that's what happens. Is he goes straight to the bench and then maybe asks a fan, I guess, because nobody down there's got their phones. And hey, what's the latest on X? Give me your phone. Let's scroll here. Let's see what they think about that tackle that I missed. Okay, all right. I guess I'll go get an interception just to calm the hordes down out there. But I mean, how much is he supposed to make next year? Isn't it like 11 million or something? Like too much for how he was playing in the early part of that game.
Well, I mean, his salary next year is easy for them to get out of. The dead money on it is really, really low. He's an $11.6 million cap number, but if they let him go, it would be 9.6 in cap savings and only 2 in dead money, which is that range that you see them willing to move on from players over the course of time. Sheldon Rankins has an almost identical number to Sam Hubbard next year in terms of ways to clear cap space, making decisions on whether they would keep or let go of them. When guys have a bunch of dead money built in, the Bengals specifically are incredibly unwilling to move on from them. Like, let's say Joe Burrow, he has $103 million in dead money next year. So they're not going to do that. Right.
Yeah, that's it. That's the reason they're not going to move on from Joe Burrow is that dead money. You can't do that.
And the same, we've talked a lot about Trey Hendrickson. I mean, they would save $16 million against the cap if they let him go this offseason, only take on 2.6 in dead money. So like they're not going to do that because they desperately need him right now. And they need him to continue playing like that next year. But these are the types of players that have the contracts that say, oh yeah, you could either keep or cut bait. Okay. I didn't finish your tweets here. So number 2, you said, love the new Bengals trend of a sick as hell touchdown run followed by quarters of unwatchable offense. Yeah. Almost identical, right? Identical to the previous week. You had the long Burrow run, you had the Charlie Jones, and then you just had, what are we watching here? How is nothing happening?
I mean, it's always such an uneasy start to these games that you have to win, and you're playing teams that you probably should beat comfortably. And then you have what a big pop that is when Burrow runs 50 yards to get that touchdown, or that big kickoff return to start the game. You're like, all right, now we're going to start cooking. We are in position here. And then to see stalled drive after stalled drive, your defense is making plays. It's like, come on, give me something here. And it just, I hate that trend. I hope we just keep score this week against the Eagles.
Not good for the tension meter.
No,
number 1, Sam Hubbard has to lead the league in injuries no one hears about for weeks. How could there be multiple of these? Has anybody done a better job of does the injury report people not know where his locker is?
Yeah. Does he not get treatment? Is that what it is? Like he doesn't have to show up on the list because he goes to a shaman or something that heals his broken fingers and torn hamstrings and I just feel like the guy's going to start coming in with like a cane or like one single crutch, like he's just, torn something in the last 3 weeks and just never came out, but he was still on the field. It just looked a little bit slow.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Is that frustrating to cover a guy for your team? Like, here's my evaluation on what he's doing right now. And then it comes out like, well, he's been playing severely injured for 3 months. Don't you look like a dumb ass? What are you doing?
Well, you hear, I mean, we know so much about injuries now. You just kind of assume that it's not going to be a problem. You know what I mean? You feel like you know everything. And even when you talk to them, they'll give you a pretty good idea of how they're feeling, even just by watching them or whatever. that's what's made Sam's situation so odd. Is like, why? How are these sneaking under the radar where they're not even being reported? And like, we hear stuff that he says he hasn't wanted to complain about injuries because he doesn't want that to be a factor. A lot of other guys have been hurt and aren't playing, so he doesn't want to complain about it. And I get it, but like, I felt like there was a reporting process that the team had to go through. And and then you're like, well, shoot, how did I not notice the thing on his finger? They're all wearing stuff on their hands all the time. And I'm like, oh, I didn't notice that's an actual splint. Apparently his finger's actually broken. So I don't know that I'm not like necessarily frustrated by it, but I am very confused as to what exactly is happening there.
I mean, it'll be a little less confusing when he just shows up in like an eye patch next week and he's like, yeah, my eye got 6 weeks ago. And you
didn't know I've had a glass eye. I've had a glass eye since week 2 of the preseason. All right. So that is your tweets. I thought you did well. I'm curious to see what it looks like in a game where things just go well across the board, because I haven't seen that yet. We've only had very angsty tweets.
I would love some joyful tweets.
Yes. Okay. All right. We need to talk about our guy, Growl Pal, realtor to the stars. We haven't checked in on if Tito has gotten in touch with our guy Eric Stanio yet. Keller Williams, who crushes it. He has a Chat GPT ad for us this week. Are you ready?
Oh, okay.
Are you ready to take it to the house? Just like Charlie Jones returned one to the house, Team Stanio is here to help you take it to your dream house or sell the one you're in and score big. The Bengals are looking for 3 wins in a row versus Philadelphia, and with Team Stanio, you'll be winning every step of the way in your real estate journey. Let's get you to the end zone. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Team Stanio. Email us at info@teamstanio.com or connect with Eric directly at Twitter at Manyo, MANYO3.
Can I just say this? I'm not buying that. That is not Chat GPT. That is just him writing a pun-filled read. Like that is just him. Are you ready to take it to the house? That's not AI. That's just Stanio coming through in his pure essence.
Yeah, but he's pretty good at it. If that's the case, you know what? That he's very punny.
Yes, and you know what?
Lean into the bit.
He's a Growl Pal. He's our guy. If you know somebody that is buying or selling a house, just get him in touch with Eric. He does a good job at what he does. He's more than just a pun-filled ad guy. He backs it up with his business, despite how corny his read might be.
Great stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you hit him up and go to that YouTube page if you ever want any information about neighborhoods, Cincinnati, market here, all that type of stuff. He has it all covered. Tons of stuff on that YouTube page. So go over to that Team Stanio on YouTube when you're done watching us.
He even brought some good merch to the last live show.
Yeah,
the hats were like very popular giveaway item last time. So maybe he'll come out again and have some more stuff for the people, for the Growl Pals. Going above and beyond. That's what you expect out of our people, and he came through. Are you ready for some questions?
Let's do it.
We're going to start with another infamous Growl Pal here. Natasha B is going to kick us off here.
All right.
She says, happy 100th episode, Paul. Absolutely love the content every week. Couldn't get through a season like this one without you guys providing facts, stats, and laughs. Keep up the awesome work, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here we go. Ready? We're getting to the question part of this now. She says, I've been pondering this season. It's been so emotional. Every time I think they can't lose in a more painful way, they do. Even when they win a game by 2 scores, it felt like a nail biter. It's just so uneasy. It reminds me of the Cardiac Cats days, which got me thinking, what's the one word or nickname you'd give to this year's Bengals team?
Wow, that's really good. But I think it would have to be involved roller coasters, not the vortex. Right, for the Kings Island people, right? They've kind of been the vortex where you just been in there and you're on the ride and it hurts and you're not really sure what direction you're going or what the hell is going on half the time. And you're kind of worried that they're going to tear the whole ride down.
Yeah,
which they did.
They did, right. Maybe we could come up with a more current roller coaster. It's been down for
a while, me, that's pretty current, you know?
For Growl Pals of a certain age, the vortex is going to hit different.
Look,
for sure.
You ever remember that show, Men of a Certain Age? Did you watch that?
I did
Scott
not, but I'm
Bakula.
familiar, with the title. Sure.
I feel like, you know what? You understand that this is a podcast for men of a certain age and women, of course. And Tasha B, shout out. This is a podcast for people of a certain age. And we got to lean into the fact that a lot of people who listen to this podcast have maybe been physically hindered by the vortex.
Yeah, we could get a class action thing going here. Really put it together. But my reference for this is not going to be any more current. Like for this team, I think like I was just thinking the Bengals with a question mark, kind of like the I'm Ron Burgundy, where he gets the question mark on the prompter, because that's what it feels like. Where it's like this is still the Bengals, right? Like the Bengals. Like the offense is looking great at times. We're like, all right, yeah, this is what we're used to, but also the vibes are a little off with, some of these early season losses. And the defense, we're not quite sure what to make of them because the entire defensive line was hurt at the beginning of the season. Now they're playing a little bit better against trash teams. So like, you're still not sure what they are. So to me, it's the Bengals with the question mark.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. Ted Karras called them the would-be Kings.
Yeah, when they were 1-4 or whatever, like that made sense. Like because there were the big 4th and 16, the close one to the Ravens. Like, that's what fans do, right? Like it's going to take a while, and that's why I need them to win this week and kind of keep building up this run. Is because you need a certain threshold to hit on the tension meter before you stop doing that every week as fans. Like, well, if only they had done this game and this game, we were so close. I mean, 2 years ago was that first loss to Pittsburgh where, the extra point mishap. And it took a long time for me to get past that of like, oh, yeah, but if you factor in that, we're actually this. And, that doesn't matter in the end. So would-be Kings hopefully is not one that sticks with this team. Hopefully they continue to move past it.
One of my favorite things ever was I was tasked one year, not tasked. I chose to do Sunday post-game Reds shows on 700, and they asked me to do it. I was like, yeah, let's do some Reds talk. I want to get into that a little bit. And so I did it, and they went on an epic Sunday losing streak where they lost like every Sunday game for half the season. It was like 10 in a row or something like that. They couldn't win on Sundays. It was hysterical. But during that, as they started to win some games and creep back, it was the year they started 3-22. And so it was like a lot of people would keep referencing like, well, look, since they started 3-22, they're playing 500 ball. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, you have those count. Like they count just the same as the rest. You can't say, do we get in the playoffs because since 3-22, they went, 75 and 65? No, you can't. It's the same thing with this 1-4 start that you're going to end up talking about all year, depending on where they are in the playoff picture. It's like at some point you got to understand that you screwed yourself by doing that. And so that would be the season of the would-be Kings could just come down to those first 5.
I kind of use that same trick with one of my soccer teams I coached this season, and I was trying to motivate the kids. I'm like, hey, girls, we played the first place team. If you look at these last 3 quarters, we played them pretty even. We only lost 1-0 against the first. And then if you factor in the first quarter that we lost 5-0 and just a complete shellacking, then yeah, it's a 6-0 pretty terrible loss. But I'm like, if you look at just this part, we're still in this game. But
Lou Anarumo, by the way, has been known to do this about his run defense over the years.
Oh, really?
Or really in general. Yeah, where it's like, well, really, if you look at our run defense, they got all of their yards on like 3 runs that went for like 160 yards. It's like, you're good on all the rest of them, but those 3, we got to, I understand that can happen, but those 3, that was really it. And it's like, yeah, well, those count.
Yeah, can't be a would-be defense.
Yeah.
But here we go. This next question kind of builds off this too. It's from Nick. Loves the podcast. He's in Northeast Ohio, so he's got a bunch of Browns fans as friends. So he says that's frustrating. But he says he's looking at the playoff standings, and the AFC is a little bit soft compared to past years. He said the Bengals have the Chargers, Broncos, and Colts to compete with for that 6th or 7th spot. Obviously not easy, but do we really think the Broncos or Colts are going to keep Cincy out of the playoff picture? I'm starting to think that 9 wins could possibly get them in. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's a good point. we were talking a little bit last week, Jay and I were, about the soft middle. The AFC is just, the Russell Wilson thing in Pittsburgh, I think, is concerning for Bengals fans, not only because they have to play Pittsburgh twice still, but they're one of these teams that you probably thought you could catch down the line. If Russell Wilson turns out to be a good fit for Tomlin and Arthur Smith and that offense, and suddenly they have serviceable quarterback play up there, they become a very dangerous team, and it changes the dynamic of the playoff picture. They're at 5-2 now. They're already going to be a challenge to catch. How Russell Wilson does, this will be a big one against the Giants this week, see if he comes back to earth. But he looked good in the second half last week, and that changed the dynamic where now you're talking about 2 spots. Because Baltimore, you're not catching Baltimore. Like, they're too good unless Lamar gets hurt. And things happen, but, like, that's the only thing that could happen, I think, to Baltimore for them to really go away. Indy, Denver, no one's scared of them. You have a game against Denver. It's, the Chargers. No, I think the Bengals are in line and in a good spot to make the playoffs. But it's up to me, and what I was saying with Jay was it's not about, to me, that they can make the playoffs right now. I think they've shown to be good enough team. I think that they can make the playoffs. That's not what this season was about. Like, this season's about a team is trying to win the Super Bowl. That's got maybe the last dance with T and Jamar and Joe Burrow, and they've got Hendrickson and these guys. Like, you're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. It's supposed to be kind of an all-any type of year. And can you beat the Chiefs and the Texans and the Ravens and the Bills if you got to go to their place in round 1? Because that's probably what you're looking at having to do. And maybe they've certainly been close against those teams, but they've got to prove that they're better than they are and that they're ascending more to get there. So yes, I don't think there's a doubt that they can end up with a better record than the Colts or the Bo Nix and the Broncos. And I don't think that's what this is about. I think, to me, it's about, can they make a run when they get there? Could they win 3 straight weeks on the road against the top of the AFC? They've done it before. It's not something I don't think that they could do. They just don't look like a team that can right now, and that needs to start to change on Sunday.
Yeah, but from a fan perspective, I get Nick's question here because you're looking for that glimmer of hope, and all of a sudden, these teams around them, they don't look that hard. And if this team gets in, you have Joe Burrow as an underdog.
No doubt.
Like, that is not a bad position to be in. Like, he's thrived in those spots before. And I think right now, especially after the 1-4 start, those would-be Kings, like, they would take being that playoff team that's going on the road even just for that shot, because they can still make some things happen. But you're right. There kind of needs to be something else that you see from this, especially from the defense, but getting more complementary football like they've talked about, and putting full games together on both sides. Like, you do need to see more.
It's very possible. Like, I don't think that there's anything where you couldn't see them putting that together, because you've seen all of it at different times this year. You've seen the offense be elite. You've seen the defense be very good, granted against bad offenses, but so what? You've still seen them be very good. And it's still Lou Anarumo in a group that can build on it. And so you can see that path to being a really dangerous team.
This next question, it's a combo tight end question from John and Kevin. Similar questions. John wants to know, is Mike Gesicki alive? And Kevin wants to know, what are the odds that Eric All is going to get some opportunities to stretch the field? Because his average at the target is 2.1 here. And he kind of thinks that, like, having him go down the field more would make defending our 12 personnel that much more complicated. And he is a guy that can make some catches. So do you think we're going to see some more Eric All down the field? And do you think we'll see some Mike Gesicki, period? Like, what's happening there?
I'm more confident that we'll see some Eric All down the field than some more Mike Gesicki. I just feel like we've seen them lean away from Gesicki for whatever reason. I mean, one, they really like what they get as far as being more well-rounded offensively with Sample and All out there together, in terms of being able to block it up and give time to Burrow when both of them stay in. Everything they're doing with them, whether it be as being versatile in the backfield and the motion blocks, all that stuff that they're using to try to create space. Having both of them has kind of become a fun toy, I think, for them to use. And so they're really leaning into that and leaning away from Gesicki. Gesicki is in there in passing downs of 11 personnel right now. And Burrow hasn't really been targeting him much. It's kind of weird. I think you'd like to see him be more involved for sure. And maybe there will be games where he is, but that just hasn't quite, after a really nice start, especially against Kansas City, he had the 91-yard game. I mean, it's just kind of been less and less in the last 2 weeks, basically non-existent. He is alive. He is alive. I have seen him. I've talked to him. Seems to be in good spirits and very much amongst the living. So he will be a part of things, but I just think that they really like what they're getting. And that is the next level, though. I mean, it's a great question because this offense and what they're doing so much in the way that they're leaning into all and how they view him, you know, in a Kittle lens, young, developing, emerging Kittle, he becomes truly a weapon when you start using him to create some explosive plays down the field. We saw the one against Kansas City, but I'm with you. I think whether it's people keying in when they've got both those guys in there of not being afraid of them going down the field, well, you've got to put that fear in them. You've got to let them run the seam. You got to let them take a wheel route out, whatever it is that you want to do. Find ways. Or a leak play, you know, where you run play action essentially to one side and everything's going one way. And Eric All, who's blocking, and it looks like he's blocking, goes off of that and runs out deep the other side of the field. We see that type of play works, especially with tight ends, agile tight ends like that a lot. Would be a good play to kind of get some explosives out of him too. So there's a number of different ways you can do it, but I agree. I think that is the next step in the Eric All evolution that they have continued to push the pedal down on all year. They've been saying, give him more until he can't handle it. And he's taking it.
And I think that like one thing that maybe gets missed in this conversation by people like that sent this question in is like, I don't think that this is necessarily like a Mike Gesicki problem. I think it's got more to do with what they like with Eric All on the field than it is of like, well, Gesicki's not producing, so let's try something different. And granted, Gesicki can still make more plays than he's made lately. I do think like, you know, and I'm not ready to write him off. I'm not ready to banish him to Irv Smith land, you know, but I do think like it's not necessarily a bad problem to have is when you've got a different tight end situation working out and a young player on the rise versus like, well, Mike's just not delivering. So we got to figure out something else.
Boy, Irv Smith land. Talk about a place that I don't think that I want to envision.
No, the tension meter.
Not even visit the tension meter. Actually, I think the tension's kind of low. You know, collected those checks, not asked to perform much.
Yeah, just having a good time, showing up,
hanging out.
No pressures.
Doing that weird legs dance every once in a while. Is one big play. Yeah.
R.I.P. Irv. Our next.
He's alive. He's alive.
Our next Growl Pal question. She does not want to be named. But what I respect from this email is that she's doing some real investigative work here. And, you know, I'm sure you appreciate that as a reporter. She says, I'm a big fan of the show. Listening to it always starts my fall weekends off right. This is kind of a weird question, but she's been following the story closely for years. And a new update just happened. So this is a couple years ago. Jamar Chase came out and said in an Us Weekly interview that he buys clothes for Joe sometimes. She thought it was a kind of a cute friendshipy light news thing for Who Dey Light. But so like, let's go forward. All right. So 2022, Jamar Chase admits to buying clothes for Joe in his GQ feature, right? Then a week or two after that, he says that he kind of lied about that. Maybe it was just Jamar kind of making a fun story for a big thing. So she's like, that's kind of weird, whatever. But then a few months later, there's an interview with Jamar and T. Higgins, and they're kind of talking to each other about how Joe gets a lot of praise for the way he dresses. And Jamar said he's actually his personal stylist, and that T said that Chase gets Joe right. I've seen him buy clothes for Joe multiple times. So now it's pretty clear that someone is lying here, and she doesn't know who. A year later, T and Jamar are doing a joint interview for Bounty, and we get this. Have you ever helped our QB with his style? And Jamar said, I don't know who dressing him. I ain't dressing him. So now he's saying that he doesn't. There's no follow-up here from T, and she doesn't understand this. And so she says, Paul, we need to get to the bottom of this. It's driving me crazy. We need some deep investigative journalism here. You need to go directly to the source. Joe and or Jamar, ask outright. if Jamar has ever bought clothes for Joe. It's the only way I'll know peace. That is a huge request. She says, thank you for reading all of this. Please don't read my name on the podcast because I'm frankly embarrassed to be this invested in Joe and Jamar's weird clothes buying saga.
Well, I appreciate the dedication, right? I mean, this is thorough. There's no question. And I'll say the one thing that we may even talked about this in a recent pod, but we did have Jamar talking about Joe's fit a couple weeks ago in New York, I think, and asking Joe specifically if that was his that he bought or if it was free, because Jamar's point was, I want to be given free clothes like Joe. Like Joe gets all his stuff for free now, and people just want him to wear their brands, of which he was all branded out in Cleveland, and that's kind of been a thing. So I can only say that Jamar is jealous of Joe's ability to get free clothes. So I'm going to guess that if he did, he is not doing it anymore, especially since Joe has become Runway Joe now, and he's got all the eyes of the fashion world upon him. You got to feel like if he makes the Super Bowl, he's wearing the backless, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
He's pulling that back out, right? For
that's probably
full
another
circle.
Yeah, it's probably another reason Jamar can't buy his clothes, because he's like, oh, this shirt would look good on Joe, but am I supposed to cut the back off of it? I don't know how he likes it anymore, so I can't commit to buying this from Macy's.
I just think Jamar's out of his world right now. Like even Jamar can't, who's got very fashion forward himself, he can't get in. Joe has entered a new stratosphere in terms of fashion awareness and brands awareness of him, that it's just really hard, I think. So in the past, I would bet that we have been lied to, first of all, probably by both of them in some respect. But I would bet that Jamar has bought clothes for him before. Joe probably did ask him to, and is never doing it again. And that's part of where Jamar's at with it now. That's my best educated guess on the situation, and I can say fairly confidently that he will not be buying him any clothes going forward. He'll be begging Joe to get one of his brands to send Jamar some of those free fits.
Yeah, also, the dynamics changed a little bit now that Joe's got a lot more money than Jamar does. But Jamar doesn't have his deal yet, so you can't really have the guy on a rookie deal going out and buying your clothes and then awkwardly holding that receipt from Macy's like, can I get reimbursed for this shirt? Or I guess I'll get some Kohl's cash out of this transaction.
Did you lose my Venmo? Did you lose my Venmo, or did you need me to send it to you again?
Yeah, the guy making, a couple $100 million can probably afford to buy his own clothes now. I've been in that situation. Like, I opened for a famous comedian once, and there were some celebrities there and athletes and stuff afterwards, and we all went out afterwards. And I remember, this guy was buying beers for me. I'm like, all right, I'll get the next round. That's what guys do, right? Like, you're friendly in that respect. And then I'm like, oh, no, wait, this dude won the World Series last year. I don't need to be buying drinks he can keep affording the drinks here, Like, these guys are all way more famous and wealthy. So, they can pick up. So at this point, Joe Burrow can pay for his own clothes. He doesn't need Jamar's expertise or him picking up the tab at Old Navy.
He needs to be much cooler than that. A story that's tangential to that. So one of my really good friends from grade school, his uncle is Dan Patrick. They grew up in Mason, that group. And so I was at his wedding. He lives out in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota. What's up, Mike? And we were there, and it was me and a couple of his buddies, and we had just gotten there. I mean middle of nowhere, North Dakota. And so we're at this, there was a small bar that was in the parking lot of the hotel, which I appreciated. And so we are sitting in there, and Dan, I've met Dan on many occasions, just being at their family functions and things like that they have at their house and stuff like that. So we'd met him. We certainly knew that he was going to be there and whatever. He walks in, he goes up to the bar, he buys 2 buckets of beer. He walks over, says, "Here you go, boys," sets them down and walks out. Doesn't say a word other than that. And I'm like, that is how you need to operate. That's how you do it right there. That's how dudes need to roll when they have the opportunity to do so and the reputation. So I always revert to that in those situations of don't be afraid to be the dude that just drops the buckets of beer down and just says, it's cool. Like, here you go. And don't talk about it. Just do it. Right. That's how you roll.
Exactly. And that's how it should be. And now, like, it would be so weird if it was reversed and you, like the younger, less rich guy, is like, here, Dan Patrick, take all these beers that I bought you. It doesn't flow that way. So
no, he wouldn't have interest.
Right. Exactly. And he's got more respect in that. So yeah, I'm with you on this. Joe's probably handling his own clothes at this point. Our last email this week is somebody that's following up on our TOOTBLAN conversation from last week, because he's got the football version that we should use to pay homage to the Bengals fans have used for decades. So his suggestion here, are you ready for it?
Yeah.
It is to brazenly unleash a nauseating game-losing error. It is a bungle.
A bungle. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the fact, the beauty of TOOTBLAN is that it's not a real word and you only think of the acronym.
Yep.
Bungle is a real word and one used to describe Bengals errors often over the year. I think we need to differentiate. This is different than those. And I don't know that, my suggestion was jag mode. Which is jeopardizing a game, making a obnoxiously dumb error. And so, because jag mode's not necessarily been a thing, but it's close enough to a thing that you wonder what it is. Bungle has so directly been an insult against the Bengals for so long that I feel like it almost hits too close to home. As good as that is, because that is well done, it maybe for this team hits a little too close.
I think also with jag mode, and I guess I think mine was like back-breaking offensive fluky fumble, a boff. Like both those you can use for other teams, right? Like TOOTBLAN can be a broader thing, it's not just bungle is just going to be Bengals related. You're not going to be using that broadly across the league. So I feel like it does kind of limit you a little bit, but I appreciate the effort. I like the stab that somebody took here.
Love the effort. Thank you.
We'll take all your questions, thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com. Moving along on that. We didn't really have an ambush question, but kind of pulling back to last week's stuff. We had somebody that did reach out and she wanted to make that comparison because for your birthday, you got a present from your daughter, which was something that she had received herself and liked and wanted to replicate that. And this user said that same thing happened to Kim Kardashian. Her daughter gave her some engraved like a piece of jewelry with some, youngster term on it that she had no idea what it was for her birthday. So you and Kim Kardashian have a lot in common, apparently. Like you're both suffering from this common parent problem.
I get that a lot. People think that me and Kim Kardashian just lead very similar lives, similar problems,
Put out a similar level of content.
Yeah, yes. And it's really hard to constantly be viewed by everyone as a sex symbol, right? Like, I mean, when you're just
that is the cross that you bear for sports writer community.
That's what we get.
What was the growler bet this week?
The growler bet this week, it is a non-T. Higgins, Jamar Chase receiving yards. So all the other players, because a big story this week about how T and Jamar centric kind of the offense has been the last couple of weeks. They've just been kind of feeding those guys. Are they going to get the other guys involved more? So everybody besides T and Jamar receiving yards combined total. That is the growler bet this week. Send it to thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com. I've already seen in the inbox the submissions are flowing in, some good ones already. So get them in there now before kickoff. And we had 3 winners last week.
That's awesome. Finally, some winners.
I know, making up for lost time on that one. So congrats to our last week's winners. Hopefully we'll see you. We can get you the winners get bar tab at our live show or something else that we can work out for you if you're unable to make it. So hopefully get those in and use something funny with growler in the header, and we'll get to that and give you guys your shout outs that you so rightly deserve on Tuesday.
Take Workshop was a segment that we've had on our show a lot during the preseason, where we take a take that is still in the works and kind of work it out together, something that maybe is not quite there. We haven't done it for like the last month or two, but we got to bring it back this month because Halloween's right around the corner, right? And so like this is something that I've kind of been working on stage. I'll mention this, right? Like around this time of year, I get bored and I'll just start talking to the crowd to see if anybody has any ghost stories. And I was in Middletown, Ohio once, and this woman was telling me she saw a ghost in her bathroom. And she walked in there and she saw a ghost. I was like, I got to hear more about this. And she said the ghost looked exactly like herself. I'm like, you saw a mirror. Yeah. You saw a mirror. That's what you saw. That you did not see a ghost. You walked into your bathroom and saw yourself in the mirror. That is, and it just like, the more I talk to people about this, I feel like it's usually the most boring people that have a ghost story, which makes me think like the unfinished business that these ghosts have is just to give boring people something to talk about at a dinner party. You know, they're like, it's not personal for the ghost. They're like, all right, they really need this. They need some sort of talking piece here. So I'm going to go visit them and make them interesting in a group. Do you have any ghost stories? Have you ever seen a ghost?
Boy, do I have a ghost story. Now, I would say longtime listeners to this program would know that I think I'm pretty sure I've told this before, but I definitely was asked when so our good friends of the program, Rick Broering and Richard Skinner, have a podcast, a skinny podcast they do together, and they caught wind of this story and asked me. They were telling ghost stories, and I told them I had one, and they asked me to come on theirs just strictly to tell this ghost story. And I think I told like a half-hour version of it. We were on there for a while, and so I can do an abridged version of it for sake of time here. But essentially, yes, I've seen a ghost. I was a senior in high school when we were having kind of like a get-together at a friend's house, and which apparently it sounded like had some haunted things happen in the past. But so again, the details, it's going to sound like it has loopholes. Just trust me. I'm just telling you the short version of the story. But essentially, we were downstairs, of course, watching like a wrestling pay-per-view, as one does when you're a dude and you're 17 and in high school. And some of our friends came running down from upstairs and said they saw a baby in a diaper running around the outside of the house, and they were chasing it and they couldn't catch it. And it was a ghost for sure. And I'm like, we're all just making fun of them, essentially. Like, this is the craziest thing you've ever heard. Well, they had an old school video camera out, and they're like recording all of them talking about it. And I'm like, I didn't see anything. I was downstairs, whatever. And so we are all sitting around this dining room table. And this is the one that I can see clear as day right now. And it's 5 or 6 of us sitting around this table. And back, there was a living room behind us, and then a hallway that went back to the bedrooms. And I'm just sitting there, and I turned around and glanced over my shoulder, and I saw a hand come out of the closet and go like this, okay, and wiggle its fingers at me.
Ooh.
Now, that alone was pretty frightening, but I thought, I'm just seeing things because they've been talking about it. We've like talking it into fruition, right?
Yeah.
I look to my buddy next to me, and I go, did you see that? And he goes, that? He saw the exact same thing. I didn't say what I saw. He did the same motion that I saw. We both, because we're smart, ran right towards it. So we run over to the closet. We throw open the closet. There's blankets. And so we're taking all the blankets out of there and everything else, and don't see this, whatever it was, nothing in there. And so we are just absolutely freaking out. And then there was my buddy's sister was there, and she had like gotten quite drunk and passed out like earlier in the day or something like that. And just hold on. There's a reason I tell you. And so somehow she had like changed into her prom dress in her bedroom. And there was like a whole bunch of like, how could that have even happened? Like the doors were shut. No one had been back there. So there was a lot of questions about what was going on there. And then there was a whole bunch of things with like people were balancing cigarettes on top of doorknobs and to like, show that you couldn't have gotten in there or whatever. And then when we came back, they had all been taken out and like lined up down the side of the hallway one by one, which again, no one had been back there. We had been sitting in the kitchen the entire time. All these creepy things started happening, but really, the fact that my buddy saw the exact same motion that I did determined to me in that moment there absolutely was a ghost in that house. That house was definitely haunted. I've definitely seen a ghost, and it's all 100% true. I have believed in ghosts ever since that day but I do think there's some Casper element. I think they're just here to kind of just amuse us. And hey, here's a bunch of idiot teenage boys. Let's go mess with them. Go do your baby in a diaper trick, right? I feel like that's kind of that is kind of how. And I don't feel like it's evil.
It's not malicious. It's just a group of ghosts huddled up like, oh, how can we mess with these kids? You know what would really freak them out? Let's get a prom dress and the cigarette thing. We'll do that again. Oh, what about a little finger wave? Like that'll really freak them out too. And the best part is no one's going to believe him because it's a bunch of high school boys watching wrestling. No one's going to buy that they didn't just get pranked by a friend or something like that. So I kind of respect that. I like that ghost story. I thought you were going to say that being a flag guy, you were visited by the ghost of Betsy Ross or something like that. And, you guys were discussing your hobby, but that's a creepy one. Have you seen one subsequently though? Like if that made you believe in ghosts, it's just that one time where you're around a bunch of friends.
No, I've never seen one since. I don't need to. I don't even really look for them because I just believe.
Yeah, that's good that it just happened one time and never again.
That's enough.
Yeah,
that's enough. I know they're there.
Not a prank. It's definitely ghosts. I do like the idea though, like that there'd be more like fun ghosts. Pranky ghosts are way better than like I'm gonna really mess up your psyche ghosts or like make you leave your house. Did they have
Marshmallow Man?
The friend that lived there, did he see the ghost anymore? Like that lived in the haunted house?
I did follow up with Nick at one point. He's a Bengals fan, and like we've caught up a few times over the years, and I can't remember exactly what he said in terms of confirming the story. But other than the fact that that wasn't something that was made up or whatever, and there was a history of some haunting there in that house.
That would be fun now if his sister's like 45 and still some nights just ends up in her prom dress because the ghosts don't have a new script. They're just running back the same playbook and they're like, ooh, remember this prom dress cigarette? We're doing it again.
Prom dress again.
Reboot. Here we go. That'd be fun.
Love it. Speaking of you working the stage, where are you at next? How did Deadlow go?
Deadlow was fun. We had a couple Growl Pals come out there. Right. And so if you missed that, if you're a local guy, Cincinnati Growl Pal, this is on sale now. Go bananas. I'm headlining December 5th through 8th. So those tickets are on sale. So you can come out to a show there. Deadlow was a blast. Great hang down there. Let's see, where am I going to be? In November, I'll be, if you live in any of these cities, you can hit me up and come out and see me. Oxford, Ohio. I'll be in Nashville on November 4th. Williamsburg, Virginia, Midland, Michigan, Seattle, and I think there's a few other I'm forgetting. So I'm out there on the road. I've got my dates on Instagram, so you can find them there as well. It's always good to connect with some Growl Pals on the road, especially if any of you live out west in the Seattle, Tacoma area. I'll be out there Thanksgiving weekend for 7 shows. So, come out, say hi, do all that. Man,
a week in Seattle. That's going to be awesome.
Hope so. I've not been out there before, so we'll see. I hope it's fun.
Seattle. I have some recs for you. You've been out there a couple of times. So
what's the rec?
Well, it would be a brewery tour is always a good way to go. Not like an official one, but one that I give you. There's some incredible breweries out in the Seattle area.
I've heard there's some great breweries out there.
Going out to the island, Kelly's Island, the island that's outside of Seattle. You can take a boat out there and go out there for a couple hours. It's really cool. If you have the ability or time, and you're going to be busy working, obviously, but I always recommend for people to take the trip up to Vancouver if you can, because Vancouver is an incredible city. So if you ever had a break of a day or two or something like that, where you could sneak up there, Vancouver is off the charts awesome. I love Vancouver.
Yeah, I've not done any of the Western Canadian stuff. I've only done like Montreal, Quebec City, Toronto, that stuff. And then there's like that huge gap in the middle that nobody cares about. And then it's like Vancouver over there. So it's a little bit trickier to get to, but I've heard great things about Vancouver.
Vancouver has Stanley Park, which is one of the greatest parks in the world. It's right off of their downtown. There's like a bike path that goes all the way around the outside. The inside's cool. It's all all different views. So it's like you're in 4 different awesome scenic views, depending on which side of the like park that you're on, because it's such a cool landscape with the water, and then it's the city on the other side and everything like that. So just going to Stanley Park alone is worth it. The food is awesome because it's such an international city. Tons of amazing food there too. So love Vancouver.
The West is underrated for sure. What do you got going on, Dad Life world?
Dad Life. Okay, so we went to Alt Park, one of our favorite places to go to, last Friday for the they gave me the choice for my birthday or whatever, and so we were playing some football. We'd gotten our like flag football set up, and so they were excited to go play football. And I'm like, okay, and maybe you guys are just doing this to be nice to me for my birthday, but cool, let's go play football. And so we set everything up out there, and we're kind of playing, and they're running some plays, and I'm trying to, stop them, and it's good fun. We're having a great time. And all of a sudden, my oldest daughter, who I've coached in baseball and stuff like that, who's never she's really good with in dance and gymnastics and stuff like that, but throwing has never really been like her strong suit in any of the throwing type sports. And so all of a sudden she's like, I want to play quarterback and throw it. I'm like, okay. And so my youngest is pretending like she's covering me. And now my daughter's left-handed. She's blonde. She morphed into Boomer Esiason. It's always so cool when your kids surprise you with something. She ripped back. I don't know if her arm is just shaped in such a way that normal throwing motions don't really apply, but football throwing motion sets her off like rookie of the year. Remember when you went back for the first time and it was and all of a sudden just unleashes just rope after rope, spiral after spiral, ripping them, throwing them over my head, you name it. And I was just flabbergasted. And so I had to teach her a lesson about Boomer Esiason, the blonde bomber, and how basically you are Boomer Esiason out here, just absolutely ripping. I needed to teach her to do the elongated fake handoff that Boomer was famous for. Get to work on her play actions, and she'll be on her way. So incredibly impressive. And I love it when your kids surprise you with something that you absolutely don't see coming,
awesome.
That was a pretty big one. Yeah, no, very.
You got a flag football prodigy, which is exciting.
We'll see.
You do have a job that has you on the road a little bit in a way. So I'd be a little curious, how she suddenly learned how to throw this tight spiral. If she starts showing up with other skills, if she's working a tire pressure gauge or helping you jump a car or something, maybe you got to ask who's coming around while you're gone. If there's a neighbor that's getting a little too involved in teaching her things, you don't need that kind of stuff in your life.
Thanks for planting that seed. Appreciate
it. The only spiral she should be learning is from her dad.
What do you got?
We are finishing up soccer finally, either this weekend or next weekend, something like that. With we have one team that's still playing the postseason. Here's what I've learned about, and everyone on that team is psyched. And here's what I've learned about the importance of coaching youth soccer, right? I've got this team and they're cooking. We went 10-0, so we were undefeated season. That's what we're celebrating, because that's in soccer. That's more impressive than a single elimination tournament. That's not, it's a much harder thing to pull off. You have some garbage teams will sneak through, whatever, but going undefeated over a whole season, that is an accomplishment. So my parents on that team think that I'm the greatest coach that's ever lived. They all want to play for me every season. My U12 team did not win a game this season. We went 0-10. So I had a 10-0 team and an 0-10 team. So that shows you the youth coaching. It's got nothing to do with the coaches. There's very little. You can make it fun still, but it's not a lot of X's and O's that are going to take you too far in the youth soccer world.
Now, you need to do a true losing coach, because I've covered many of these over the years in different sports, where they'll tell you later, you know what? The best coaching job I ever did was on that 0-10 team, right? It's always the team that lost. That was when I got the most out of those guys. I kept them going. They got better during the year. That's how you got to sell it. For the 10-0 team, I didn't do anything. That's them. That's where I earned it.
And I break into my Lou Anarumo of if you take out these plays, now we are an okay team, actually.
If you forget all the goals that the other team scored, really, we would have won more games.
Or had a lot more 0-0 ties if you take away all their goals.
Love it. Mark, appreciate it. I know that we'll be catching back up on Sunday at the live show, 10 o'clock, BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks. We hope to see you there. Like I said, we're going to be giving away a Greater Shipper pack. We're going to be spinning the wheel. We're playing all our games, tons of giveaways, bar tabs, $3 Cincy Lights, $6 Queen City Nachos. They got a whole brunch set up going. It's going to be awesome down there. So come on down. Have a good time with us before the game, right off the streetcar stop between GABP near the Grail, all those places. You've been there before. It's just an awesome venue. We've had so much fun at these shows. We hope to see you guys on Sunday morning as you head into Bengals Eagles, and then Jay and I will have you for the walkout after the game, covering everything that went down from Paycor Stadium. So thanks everybody for listening. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on Sunday morning. Have a good one.